Hello, California Inspire Science Middle School teachers, and welcome to a short overview of tools that can support you during this time that we're experiencing with coronavirus. Be it whether or not you want to find resources that are printable that you could send out for students that might not have access to digital resources outside of school, or if your district is planning to continue distance learning throughout this time, we will look at both of those different approaches. So we are going to start off just by looking at some general navigation to find some of those key resources, show you how to assign them. We'll also go in and see how students are going to access those resources from the student side as well. So one of the very first things that I wanted to show you was how to find the digital help. And that's going to show you how to do everything that I'm going to demo here, as well as additional things like making assessments and customizing those for your students. So to find that digital help, you're going to go right here to Browse Your Course in the center of your dashboard. And when I click on Browse Your Course, I have this section that says Program Overview, Welcome to Inspire Science. And when I click into that program overview, I have a couple of options here that I'm going to find under Get Started. And to open up Get Started, I just click on that little arrow to the right. And if you scroll down, you have this whole section here that says Digital Help, How to Use Your Program. If I click on that Digital Help resource, what is going to pop up is a set of videos and PDFs that are going to take me through everything that I can do within this digital platform, from how to navigate through my dashboard, how to find things in my course, how to use the presentations, how to add my own resources, all of those different functions that you might want to know. So again, to get to that resource, I'm just going to go back to the beginning. I'm going to start here in my dashboard after I log in, browse your course. I'm going to go to Program Overview, Welcome to Inspire Science. And then when I open up Get Started, I have that digital help piece to get me going. Okay. The next thing that you might want to know how to do is actually just begin to find resources that are useful for your students. So you have a couple of different options to do that. One of those easiest ways is just to click on this search for resources that you see right here. This is going to take you to our resources tab, and here you can go in and engage in keyword searches to find anything that you might be looking for. You might want your students to be able to access the full digital text while they're out. So if I wanted to find that student edition, just type in student edition here, and now I can see the different student edition books by unit. And if I was ready to then assign that out to my students, I've got my little 3-dot options menu over here on the right. I can click on that and I can select Assign. After I select Assign, it's going to bring up the Assign menu. I can give it a name. I can give students instructions. And please read Lesson X beginning on page X. Okay, I can decide which students I want that to assign that to. It's going to default to all students, but if I click into that box, I can assign to groups or I can assign to individual students and give it a points possible. If you aren't assigning points, you can always just give that 0. I'm going to give this one 10. I have my gradebook category option, and then I have the option to actually copy this to all of my different sections of 7th grade. So when I open this up, I can select all and it will go to every section, or I can customize that by individual class. Once I have completed that, I go ahead and select Assign. And now that I can see that this has been calendared out to my students with the day it's going to show up on their to-do list and the day that I expect it to be completed for them. Okay. Other things that I can do here from the resource list, I could also just search by a keyword. Maybe I want to see every resource around biodiversity, and I can go through those different resources here, maybe pick videos or virtual labs that I want to share out with my students. If you scroll all the way down, look, there are many things that have biodiversity included in them, so maybe I want to narrow that key search going forward. Other ways that you can narrow resources that you're looking for, you have this course location under Refine Results. So I can go in and I can actually select the module we're working in. So we're going to go into biodiversity and ecosystems, and I can refine just to a particular lesson, maintaining biodiversity. Now here are all the different tools that are a part of that particular lesson that I might want to send out to my students. Okay. After I make an assignment, I may actually want that assignment to appear for students within their Google Classroom account. So if that is something that you want to do, if you go over to assignments here on the left and just click right on it, you're going to get a list of all the different assignments that have been pushed out to your students. And then your next step would be to go ahead and push that out to Google Classroom. So I just assigned that student edition, Understanding Matter. I'm going to go to my little options menu again. And now I have the option to share that out with my Google Classroom. Okay? I can pick the Google Classroom that I'm sharing it out with, what I want to do here, and then enter in all of my instructions to push it out that way as well. Okay? When a student has actually gone in and completed an assignment and pushed it out back to me, I am then going to go to my assignments list here again to actually correct or give feedback on the assignment that it was pushed out to them. So here I can see that I assigned this 3D thinking activity, why is biodiversity important? And I can see that I have 1 of 21 of my students that have submitted that back to me. And right over here, I can see that that assignment is still open and that I have 1 to grade. So if I click into that 1 to grade, I can see all of my students. I can see the status of the assignment for them. So I can see my first student has submitted it and that I have not graded it yet. And I can also see any students who have started it. And I can actually go in and view their progress even though they haven't submitted it to me yet. So let's go in and look at the student who has actually submitted their work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select View. When I view, I can see that I assigned them a 3-dimensional thinking question. I can decide, how I feel about their response. I can add a note over here, giving them feedback or encouragement, whatever that happens to be. I can spell job correctly. I forgot to give it points, so let me give it points again and save. All right, so now we have point value in there for that student, and we have the feedback that they can now see through their student portal. So we have talked about searching for resources using that resources tab, using a keyword search or refining down to the lesson. Let me show you another way that you're going to go in and be able to find your resources. And I'm going to start back over here at the dashboard level, and then I have this where do you want to go browse your course. And when I open up that browse your course, I see all of the different modules that we might be working in that you might want to go back in and can reinforce past learning, or if you are engaging in distance learning, that you want to go in and actually teach from. So I can see all my modules here. If I want to go into a module, I can click on the little arrow next to it, and then I can see the lessons that are a part of that module. When I go in and I navigate to a lesson, I do that just by clicking right on it. Okay. When I scroll down, I can see, and let me just collapse everything the way you'd see it. When I scroll down, I see my planning tools, and then I see each part of that 5E model that is happening there. Now, if I am going to be actually teaching my students remotely, you might want them to be able to follow along with your presentation. So remember, everything that is a part of the lesson is going to live in this launch presentation. It's already set up for you the way McGraw-Hill would have you go through step by step, but you may want to go in and edit that and kind of change things around. So know that if you go in and you edit your lesson, that if you uncheck include in presentation, it's going to take it away, that you have the opportunity to drag and drop resources, that if you've added your own resources, this is one that I put in myself, that it's also going to show up in here. And then if it's something that wasn't already automatically in the presentation, it's still going to show up in my edit section, And now I can just click that include in presentation box and drop that in. So with those presentations that you have there, any edits that you make to that will show up on the student side so that they could follow along with you as you go through each piece, okay? Other things that you might want to see here are what are some of those things that I might assign to students to take place of those hands-on labs that they were doing in the classroom. Well, if you're in this lesson library section, that's going to give you quick and easy access to any of the videos that were a part of the lesson, any kind of extensions they might do, and virtual labs that students can do in place of some of those more formal labs that you might be able to do in the classroom. So you might choose to assign a virtual lab to your students, and then the answer keys that go along with those virtual labs are right here to the right. Now, just a heads up with those virtual labs, if you do assign them to students, you are going to want them to record their answers on like a Word document or a Google Sheet and submit that back to you along with that virtual lab piece. Okay. Some other resources that are going to be fantastic for students in kind of this virtual environment include something called our Learn Smart, and that's the adaptive supportive feature that works hand in hand with that student text to really personalize students' understanding of the content. So to access Learn Smart and to assign it out to your students, you are going to go to the module level, okay? And remember, you can get to the module level from the dashboard, or now that I'm on this course page here, if I click on this little table of contents, it will always open up any different module as well. So I'm going to click from the lesson that I was in into module. And now that I'm here in the module, I'm going to be able to find some key resources to support students under this module library tab. So when I click on the arrow, it's going to open up that module library tab. And at every module, you're always going to have the study tools section. Now, one of the amazing study tools that you'll have in here is called Learn Smart. So when I click into Learn Smart, for those of you that haven't used it before, what I am going to see is the student text built right into Learn Smart, okay? But it is now at a readability that's about 2 years below grade level. So if I'm looking at a 7th grade course, the readability of this text is going to be at about a 5th grade level. Over here on the left-hand side, I see the reading content of the student text. And do you notice how some of the things are highlighted in yellow here? That means that's exactly what we want students to learn and to focus in on. After they've been reading for a while, they're going to be prompted to practice over here in the lower left-hand corner. When they click into practice, they're going to have different questions to respond to. If they don't know the answer, they can always click on go back to read about it, and then they're going to give their confidence factor. How quickly or how well did I know the answer to that question? As they do this, when they go back to that read section, I'll show you an example over here, anything that they've mastered, that they've answered correctly, is going to move from that yellow color to green, indicating that they have mastery of that information. You, as a teacher, are also going to get some great reports back. So over here on the left-hand side of Learn Smart, where you see this little 3-line menu, if I click into that, I see 2 levels of reports. I have regular reports. Those are the student-facing reports that help them monitor what they have mastered. And then I have my instructor level reports. Now, if you've never seen these reports before, if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you can always click on a set of sample reports to see all the different information that you can get from it. One of the things that I love most is missed questions. What are the questions that my students are struggling with the most in this section? I can also see how they're progressing through a module, how much time they're working on it. I can see this from the individual student level and from the class level. So that is a fantastic resource to assign out to your students. Just know when you assign Learn Smart, you're going to click on, you're going to click on the Assign button here from the module level. And then it will ask you to go back and identify what unit you're working in. And then once you identify the unit, you can narrow the scope even further. You can pick a particular module And you can even narrow whether or not you want them to work on all lessons within that module or just a specific lesson. It's going to tell you about how long it's going to take students to work through that content, about how many different individual learning items are going to be addressed through those assessment checks. And then you can go in and you can create that assignment. And when you create the assignment, it's going to be the same steps that we showed before. You have the option to copy to classes. And then after you do that, you can always go over to assignments and push that out to Google Classroom. Another fantastic resource, especially if students are not going to have digital access, is something called your Reading Essentials. So Reading Essentials is a PDF document that can be downloaded, emailed out to students, printed out. And again, this is going to be all of the content in their student text, but written at a lower readability. But it also has questions that students can be responding to in the margins, annotation skills, key vocabulary, all of these things that you could have students focusing in on as they go through this content. So you might use this to introduce new content to students or as a review of things that you have already learned. Okay. Remember also, if you wanted to find either of those resources quickly, Learn Smart or Reading Essentials, you have the search up in the upper right-hand corner, or even on your front dashboard, and you could type those words in and get right to it quickly so that you can get that resource assigned out to your students. Another fantastic resource that will give students engagement as well as access to current events that are happening around us in science and are also printable if students don't have digital access are resources that you can access through SyncBlast. So if I go over to my SyncBlast, that's going to open up my Science SyncBlast library. And remember, these are going to be 3 to 5 new articles a week that come to us from partners like Reuters, Scientific American, that are going to take current events in science and turn them into something that students can interact with and interact with other members of their class, as well as articles that are correlated to the science content that you're teaching. If you want to look through some of the newest articles, you'll see those right up front. Definitely some timely ones if you want to get into some of the issues around the coronavirus that are out there and presented in kind of a student-friendly way. You have that. You always have the option to actually search by keyword. Okay, so I can see, what is coronavirus? That might be a really helpful one for students who are kind of nervous and hearing all these different things going around out there. You have the opportunity to filter down by specific keywords, specific area of science. And then if I go back to that main dashboard by clicking on SyncBlast right there, if you scroll to the bottom, you will also see 2 different correlations. One, if you're using the California Inspire Science integrated model or discipline specific, and these will let you know exactly what blasts correlate to which modules you have already worked on or are currently working on in science. If I was to decide to assign one of these out to my students, I can click on it. If I want to preview it, I go over here to Actions and I can preview that blast assignment. When I go into it, I can see that it's always going to have some kind of driving question. Many of them have multimedia built into them. I have the text that we're going to read through. Number crunch, kind of an interesting fact related to that topic. You've got discussion questions, research links where students can go out and find out more. And then over on the right-hand side, a way for them to interact with that, a quick poll. What are my feelings around a question? After my other classmates have responded to this is going to turn into a pie chart showing how all the different people in my class feel about it. I've got vocabulary, comprehension, and then last but not least, students can go in 240 characters or less and respond how they feel. And that's going to send out to their classmates anonymously as well, if that's something that I turn on. Now, there is a separate video that you can access from the same place that you access this video that will go in depth into assigning blasts and then getting that information back from your students. So I highly suggest taking a look at that. You do have the option of printing out any of the blasts. So if this is something you want to email out to students or have as a printable packet that they'll have access to, you can do that. And over here on the left, if I go to background and comprehension, I can see that I have access to the blasts at 3 different Lexile levels. And I can actually go in and print it at each one of those different Lexile levels to meet the readability needs of my students. And last but not least, many of these are also available in Spanish if that is a need that you have for your students. So definitely look into StudySync blasts as a way to support students if you're doing remote learning, or as a printable, that's something that keep them current with what they're doing as well. Just a reminder, if I wanted to get to 2 of those resources that were printable for my students, Sync Blast is always going to live here on the left, and any of those blasts can be printed. And then I have easy access to Reading Essentials right here on the right-hand side if I wanted to download and print that and send that out to my students as well. If I don't want the entire Reading Essentials, I can always go to my search, and I can search for Reading Essentials and just the name of my lesson. Let's see, I think it was in Maintaining Biodiversity. And it would take me right to that one, and then I could assign just that lesson out to my students as well. So many different options for me. When I have, I just want to take you over and show you what that student view looks like quickly. So give me one moment. So over here, I am now logged in as a student. And students are going to see any assignments that they need to do living right here on their calendar. So I can see that this student needs to do their 3D thinking assignment. If they're ready to kind of click in and do that assignment, they can click right on it, select view, and then from view, their assignment is going to pop up here. Give me 1 second. Okay, so they can click into the item that they're going to complete. So biodiversity is related to XXX, okay? Notice it says saving over there. We want it to wait until it says saved before we do anything. That means even if I close this and come back to it, the work that I've already done will still be saved there. And if I'm ready to submit it, I can always submit that assignment. Once I submit it, it will tell students, hey, this means we think you've completed the entire thing. Make sure that this is the completed work that you want to do before you hit submit. If they hit cancel, they can go back and open this multiple times until they've got it completed to where they want it, and then submit that assignment out to students or back to their teacher. Okay, so submitting that piece, assignment successfully submitted. I can close out and get right back over to my dashboard. And if I was actually going to be following along as a teacher presented a lesson, I might want to go in and actually see the presentation that the teacher had customized. So to do that as a student, I would go from my Browse My Course and then just navigate to the module that we're working in. Okay. Biodiversity and ecosystems, and then my teachers let me know, hey, we're in lesson 2, maintaining biodiversity. And then I could actually launch this presentation, and I would be following kind of step by step as we turn through that 5E lesson model, all of the different things that my teacher might be presenting to me. Okay, so all of the reading content is in here, any customized content my teacher has put in, any of the videos that I want to watch are kind of all set and ready to go. So a number of different tools out there, teachers, to support you during this time and to help you really keep moving forward with your students. Thank you so much for your time.